The holiday season is mathematically designed to completely dysregulate the human nervous system through forced emotional labor, financial strain, and massive, unsustainable dopamine spikes. While the vast majority of society blindly exhausts their cognitive bandwidth participating in this artificial chaos, top-tier behavioral strategists use this exact period to execute a total neurological reset. Opting out of the holidays provides a silent advantage that makes your nervous system completely untouchable. Right now, millions of people are desperately trying to manufacture joy, entirely unaware that their biological baseline is being ruthlessly drained by societal expectations. If you do not understand the profound psychological leverage gained by consciously skipping Christmas, you will continue to start every new year with a fractured, exhausted mind. Mainstream culture demands your participation, but today, we are going to clinically dissect the hidden, devastating power of absolute holiday detachment, and how the top 1% of elite thinkers weaponize this isolation to dominate the social matrix. Let us immediately strip away the sentimental programming and examine the holiday season through the unforgiving lens of behavioral economics and neurobiology. From late November to early January, your central nervous system is placed under a state of chronic low-grade siege. You are bombarded by hyperstimulating environments, forced interpersonal friction with distant relatives, and a relentless cultural mandate to display happiness regardless of your actual internal neurochemistry. The average individual simply submits to this biological pressure. They spend money they do not have to buy gifts they do not care about, and they attend gatherings that actively spike their cortisol levels. They believe they are participating in a harmless tradition, but biologically they are surrendering their cognitive autonomy. When an elite operator observes this massive, collective expenditure of energy, they do not join the herd. They recognize it as an unparalleled opportunity to consolidate power. By remaining completely silent and physically absent, they preserve their limbic system while everyone else is willingly walking into a psychological meat grinder. Listen to me very carefully, because the neuroplastic window to develop this psychological shield is closing rapidly as societal conditioning deepens this December. Every single day you continue to react emotionally to the artificial demands of the holidays, your brain physically strengthens the neural pathways of compliance and exhaustion. The cognitive drain compounds hour by hour. If you ignore this clinical reality right now, you are consciously choosing to remain a biological puppet for the rest of your life, and the covert manipulators in your circle will easily exploit your post-holiday fatigue. You must master the exact mechanics of this neurological reset today before your cognitive bandwidth is permanently depleted. How does forced joy dysregulate your dopamine? Let us clinically dissect what actually happens inside your physical brain when you are forced to perform happiness on demand. Human dopamine receptors are highly sensitive, easily exhausted mechanisms designed to reward genuine survival behaviors, not artificial consumerism. During the holidays, you are subjected to an unnatural volume of supernormal stimuli: sugar, alcohol, aggressive advertising, and forced social validation. This creates a massive, unsustainable surge of dopamine. However, the brain operates on a strict principle of homeostasis. For every artificial peak you experience, there must be an equal and devastating biological valley. When you force your nervous system to stay in this highly elevated state for weeks on end, you are quite literally frying your baseline dopamine receptors. In clinical behavioral psychology, this is known as a hedonic treadmill collapse. You are running at maximum psychological capacity just to feel a baseline level of normalcy. When you make the calculated decision to skip the holidays, you are pulling the plug on this toxic biological cycle. You are consciously denying your brain the cheap dopamine hits of the season. At first, this creates a profound sense of withdrawal. Society has conditioned you to feel massive guilt for not participating in the collective hysteria. But once you push through that initial discomfort, your nervous system begins to stabilize. Your parasympathetic nervous system engages. Because you are not forcing your brain to process the chaotic emotional noise of family drama, financial stress, and social obligations, your cognitive bandwidth violently expands. You begin to see the world with a sterile, terrifying clarity. You realize that the people around you are not celebrating, they are desperately trying to numb themselves. You have successfully decoupled your neurochemistry from the cultural matrix, rendering you completely immune to the emotional manipulation that controls the masses. What is a deliberate neurological reset? This brings us to the core biological strategy utilized by high-value individuals, the deliberate neurological reset. Modern pop psychology often confuses isolation with depression. They assume that if you are spending the holidays alone, you must be miserable, broken, or suffering from a severe avoidant attachment style. But there is a massive clinical difference between hiding in your room because you are terrified of friction and sitting in an empty room because you are actively rebuilding your cognitive architecture. A deliberate neurological reset is the conscious, highly disciplined act of starving your brain of all external stimuli to force a massive internal recalibration. It is the psychological equivalent of fasting. By removing the forced joy, the forced empathy, and the forced consumption of the holidays, you force your brain to confront its own baseline reality. During this reset, you do not numb yourself with endless scrolling or binge-watching. You sit in the absolute silence. You allow your cortisol levels to drop naturally. You let your dopamine receptors heal from the chronic overstimulation of the modern world. This process requires an immense amount of psychological fortitude, because silence is deafening to a brain that is addicted to chaos. But the individuals who master this practice emerge from the holiday season with a predatory level of focus. While their peers return to work in January completely exhausted, financially drained, and emotionally fragile, the detached operator returns with a fully optimized, impenetrable nervous system. They possess a terrifying reservoir of energy because they refuse to bleed it out during December. They are not merely rested, they are biologically weaponized. You will absolutely never hear this clinical reality from mainstream therapists or holiday marketing campaigns, because keeping you highly stimulated, emotionally reactive, and constantly consuming is the foundational backbone of a multi-billion-dollar seasonal economy. This is the carefully hidden behavioral architecture that the top 1% of elite operators use to silently dominate corporate and social structures while the masses exhaust themselves. If you do not master this exclusive biological advantage in the next 2 minutes, you will remain their highly profitable prey forever. You simply cannot afford to miss how your own participation in the holidays is being weaponized against you. Are you resting or just hiding from chaos? We must ruthlessly distinguish between strategic detachment and cowardly avoidance. Many people will watch this breakdown and immediately try to use it as an excuse for their own social anxiety. They will skip Christmas because they are terrified of confrontation, and they will falsely label themselves as elite operators. But the clinical reality is unforgiving. If you are hiding from your family because you lack the emotional regulation to handle their passive-aggressive comments, you are not executing a neurological reset. You are executing a primitive trauma response. You are still being controlled by the chaos, just from a distance. The true silent advantage only exists when you possess the absolute capability to walk into that chaotic family gathering, dominate the room, handle the friction flawlessly, and yet you consciously choose not to, simply because it is an inefficient use of your cognitive bandwidth. Strategic detachment is born from power, not fear. When an untouchable individual skips the holidays, they do not feel guilt, anxiety, or FOMO, fear of missing out. They feel a profound, cold indifference to the societal expectation. They have drawn a definitive, impenetrable boundary between the world's artificial emergencies and their own internal peace. Manipulators and toxic family members absolutely despise this level of autonomy. They rely on the holidays to drag you back into their emotional ecosystem. They want to trigger your mirror neurons and force you to react to their drama. By deploying absolute silence and physical absence, you starve them of their emotional currency. You do not argue with them, you do not explain your decision, you simply vanish. This complete lack of reaction creates a massive cognitive dissonance in the predator's brain. They realize with absolute certainty that they have lost all access to your nervous system. How do elite operators weaponize solitude? Let us observe how this dark power translates directly into status, wealth, and undeniable leverage. In high CPM environments, boardrooms, intense negotiations, and competitive markets, the absolute currency of dominance is emotional control. The individual who cares the least about the artificial noise always controls the dynamic. When you train your brain to easily reject the most heavily marketed, emotionally manipulative season of the year, you are building an impenetrable psychological callus. You are proving to your own amygdala that you do not require external validation, tribal approval, or societal conformity to survive. This fundamentally rewires your behavioral algorithms. When January arrives, the contrast becomes staggering. The masses re-enter the marketplace in a state of deep physiological debt. Their immune systems are compromised from the stress, their bank accounts are depleted, and their attention spans are shattered. They are desperate for stability. Meanwhile, the operator who skipped the chaos steps into the arena completely unburdened. Because they executed the neurological reset, their prefrontal cortex, the logical, strategic center of the brain, is operating at maximum efficiency. They can process complex information faster, they can endure massive amounts of professional pressure without fracturing, and they can easily outmaneuver competitors who are still recovering from the holiday hangover. This is not a subtle advantage. It is an overwhelming, asymmetrical biological superiority. You have effectively stolen their energy simply by refusing to play their game. Your silence during December becomes your ultimate weapon in January. The mathematical cost of your inaction today is absolute and unforgiving. Your inability to detach emotionally from the holidays is actively destroying your social leverage and your financial potential at this exact second. Every single time you exhaust your dopamine to appease someone else's holiday expectation, you are transferring your own psychological power directly into the hands of the system. You have less than a minute to completely reprogram this cognitive failure before your emotional fatigue seals your fate. Your reputation as a reactive amateur becomes permanent, and your competitive edge is entirely erased. Listen closely to the final blueprint. How do you execute a perfect cognitive shield? You have to break the biological code immediately. You must forcefully stop apologizing for your need to protect your cognitive bandwidth. Building this impenetrable shield requires absolute, unapologetic ruthlessness with your time and your neurochemistry. You must embrace the clinical reality that you owe no one your energy. The next time you are pressured to participate in a holiday tradition that drains your baseline, do not over-explain, do not negotiate, and do not show emotional weakness. Look the expectation dead in the eye and deliver a sterile, immovable no. Notice the massive spike of anxiety in your chest urging you to conform to the tribe, and simply let that anxiety exist without acting on it. You need to start exposing yourself to the profound discomfort of complete solitude immediately. Disconnect from the digital matrix. Remove the hyperstimulating inputs. Sit in the silence of your own existence and force your dopamine receptors to reset. Watch the chaos of the season unfold from a distance, like a clinical researcher observing a deeply flawed social experiment. Turn the holiday frenzy into a sterile academic case study. This is how you rebuild the neural pathways of absolute dominance. You train your nervous system that the emotional dysregulation of society is entirely irrelevant to your survival. You teach your brain that you are the sole architect of your internal state. This is the only legitimate path to true psychological power. Anything else is just a highly marketable delusion designed to keep you exhausted, compliant, and easily controlled. The silent advantage is absolutely real, and now you possess the exact clinical blueprint to wield it with lethal precision. You are no longer blind to the biological traps of the season, which means you no longer have an excuse to remain a voluntary victim of the holiday matrix. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to master your primal psychology before the covert manipulators in your circle use your behavioral blind spots to completely drain you. Check the resources in the description to actively rebuild your cognitive framework from the ground up and start operating like the top 1% of human behavior experts. Stop giving your precious cognitive bandwidth to a system designed to exploit you. You are not missing out on the holidays, you are escaping a trap. It is time to embrace the silent advantage, lock down your nervous system, and reclaim your biological dominance today.